Take the Town, episode 33, and big guest today, special guest, John Karalis of Boston Sports Journal, Locked on Celtics Podcast. John, thanks for coming on the show.
Oh, it's my pleasure.
Appreciate having you, man. Thank you.
This is awesome.
Could we offer you a cup of coffee first?
You can always offer me a cup of coffee. In fact, just give me the box.
Right. That's the policy here. Is any guest that comes on gets a complimentary cup just to get the motor going a little bit.
On a blustery day like today, it's been a hot commodity.
Yeah.
So
you like what I did there? Yeah.
So you were in DC.
Yes, sir.
You've been covering the Celtics. How many years have you been covering the Celtics?
Full time as a beat reporter since 2017. As a blogger since 2006. So we're 18 years now. So it's been a long time. Been a long time since I've been writing and talking about the Celtics.
Very familiar with the team. This was your first trip to the White House.
First ever trip to the White House. Yeah.
What was that whole experience like? First just as for yourself, but also covering the team and kind of what you gleaned from it.
I mean, super cool, right? You're in the White House. So you walk up. Like, I've been to DC plenty. I've walked past the White House plenty, but then they make the mistake of letting me in, and I'm like, oh, this is actually really nice. It was funny because they told me to go to the northwest corner to walk in. I went to like the southeast corner, so completely opposite.
You misread your compass.
I forgot my compass is what it was. Brett Hampton, best creator in Boston.
No way.
Absolutely. That dude is like, that's the dude you need to be talking to, not me.
We'll get him on the show at some point.
Absolutely, man. That dude is amazing.
Does he work for the Celtics?
He works for the Celtics. He's like embedded with Jason Tatum.
Unreal.
Seriously. We'll talk about it when we're done here.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I had Secret Service. Like, I walked up to Secret Service, and like other Secret Service officers came around me. I'm like, okay, I didn't even see any of these people come in, so it was kind of wild. But it was quick. You get into the Rose Garden and packed house, and you're just walking around like, this is kind of incredible, and you see the faces on these Celtics players. They're kind of like in awe mostly. We didn't get to go inside, but they were inside at the Oval Office, and it was a long day for them. Might explain how why they played so poorly against the Washington Wizards, but super cool experience to be there, be on the White House grounds, and it just feels kind of like awesome.
You can feel the ghosts in a good way.
Yeah.
I like that the Wizards were pulling out all the stops to try to get an edge in an NBA Cup game. Let's kind of throw a full day at the White House with the Celtics. Maybe get some tired legs.
They had Alex Ovechkin there. Maybe throw a little cross check on Tatum on the way by.
Joking, but not a joke.
A little elbow.
Yeah. So you started the blog in 2006.
Yes, sir.
How long? When was the first kind of time you were in the locker room? The first sort of group of players that you got to know that you were covering well, who kind of were.
So like Rajon Rondo was one of my first interviews, which is interesting because you knew you had one question to like hook him, and if you didn't ask the right question, then he knew you were like either nervous, you weren't there, you weren't like, you had to be on his level, and I wasn't at that point, so I like all of a sudden I could feel the shutdown answers coming. I was like, and it makes me laugh because like I don't care when the players like either like challenge me or push back, or if I get a canned answer, I don't care because it's like, I didn't ask the right one. It's like it's my fault.
Some self-reflection.
It is absolutely. I go back and look at the game film in my mind of my own job. And I'm like, I gotta figure out how to ask these questions in a better way. So the fact that Rondo was one of my first interviews and that group, that really helped me kind of prepare. Like, if Rondo's going to be tough, and they're all going to be tough, and if you're going to want to get a good answer from somebody, you actually have to know what you're talking about, and you have to ask it in a way that they have to kind of give you an answer, that they're not going to dance around things.
Well, so like the interesting thing with that is we watch now the Joe Mazzulla interviews, and we hear his responses to Gary Washburn or to yourself or to Abby Chin. What is that like? Has his demeanor changed as he's gotten more confident? And he also seems like a guy that you have to be on your game for.
Yeah, I had him on the podcast. We talked for about 45 minutes, and like a lot of it is just let him talk because he's an intense guy. So you just let him talk, and he will he will find his way into some kind of like crazy comedy. But he has kind of, just in this short time, he was, it came off as a little standoffish, and now it's just intense, and he's so focused on, and I think because of the championship, you'd think maybe somebody would relax. He's like, no, he cannot relax because he feels like he needs to be the most focused guy in the room because the players have so many distractions. The players have so many things. All of a sudden, Jaylen Brown is getting the, he's got 2 playoff MVPs there now on his resume. Everybody's like, oh, you're great, you're great, you're great. And so Joe feels like, I got to be the one that grounds everybody. I got to be the one that keeps, in a way, hurting the Cats because it's very easy to get caught up in your own kind of celebrity now, right? You're on the cover of magazines. You're in the cover of a video game. It's very easy to be like, I've done it. We're good. One of the things, and I think the first time he said it was on my podcast, was like, we're not defending anything. We all talk about it like defending champions. And he's like, we're not defending anything. That championship, it's ours. No one's taking it away from us. There's nothing to defend. We're going after the next championship. And I think that kind of mindset is something he's trying to instill on his guys. And that's why he's as intense as he is. And so, yeah, you got to be careful what you ask him, because if it's not directly basketball related, and if it's not on message, if it's not like the thing that he wants to talk about, he can be very dismissive of it.
Have you ever had sort of back and forth where maybe you ask a question and you're, man, I wish I had that one back, or one that he really kind of dug his teeth into?
Yeah, I mean, even the other day when the Celtics, they'd beaten Toronto, maybe, and I asked about a third quarter, like they lost the third quarter by a lot, and he was upset and told me afterwards, is like, we won a game, that was a hard-fought game, like, you're asking about the part that the one quarter where we were bad, why weren't you asking about the other stuff that was good? And I won't get into the private conversation of it, but it was a good back and forth. Like, the one thing Joe is like, he's not, it's never personal. It's never like, he has no issues. Like, I think Joe and I have a really good relationship. And if he doesn't like something that I'm asking, he'll tell me. And if I think he's starting to like get a certain way, like I can pull him aside and be like, hey, like, you gotta give us something, because I think the one thing that everybody in the organization has to understand is this team's a little on the boring side as far as storylines go. They're just good, right? They're just boring. A really good team,
right?
But they're not good in the sense of like there's also a Draymond Green that has a potential to explode. They're just good, and so when they're just good, when it's a little bit on the boring side, he's got to understand, like, I still have a podcast to do. I still have things to write. Like, I can't go to my boss, and other writers can't go to their editors and be like,
good,
too boring today. Sorry,
news.
Boston Globe.
They're good.
Yeah, we're just going to be like, yep, they're good. They won again.
Yeah. That would probably be an interesting story if it was just a blank page.
Yeah, just one paragraph about the Wizards game. Be like, they didn't really try hard, except for 5 minutes. It was enough to win by 4. Like, all right, thanks. Like, we got to fill the space. Like, we have no choice. So he has to give us stuff to fill the space. It's like a little bit of a game there, but you got to figure out where's the, how much do you give us so we're satisfied? And if you don't give us anything, that space is going to be filled by something else. So if you don't give us answers, somebody's going to start speculating, and that's where you got to be careful. And so the relationship between coach and media is important behind the scenes to like understand we have a job to do, and we're not accusing you of anything when we say, why did you like not box out 5 times in a row? But like, we're curious, like, how did they get 5 straight offensive rebounds? Like, you gotta be able to tell us that sometimes.
Right. What is like the biggest storyline for this team? Because obviously, we're in the same boat where we're talking about the Celtics, and before you came on, it's like, oh well, they're really good. And I asked the question, if they weren't to continue to win at this pace, what would be the reason why? And the guest who came on said injuries. I say, okay, well, besides that, like,
that's always injuries, right? Like, for everybody.
Is there anything that could happen? Are they beyond the hero ball? Are they beyond all of those conversations?
I think they still have a tendency now they've kind of gone back to playing down to opponents, but they're not doing it in a way that's been hurting them. They lost one game because of it, the Hawks game. So they're 13-3 at this right now, and they were 12-4 at this point last year. So they're better than they were last year record-wise. What would hold them back? It would be like an inability to flip the switch. Maybe when Porzingis comes back. I think their 3-point balance right now is like they're really testing the limits of the 3-point shot. I think the one problem that they have offensively, and this is part of figuring out a new season, where's the line? And this is the exact question I asked Jaylen Brown after the Wizards game. You have the ultimate green light to shoot 3-pointers with Joe Mazzulla, and you are testing the limits of 60 3-pointers a game. Like no team in the NBA has a greater percentage of their points coming from the 3-point attempts. Where's the line of we are driving, we are kicking, and we're taking the open threes versus we're falling a little bit behind, we know we can hit threes, I'm going to take the first good look that I have. They're all good looks, technically, but you're not making the defense work. You're not getting your teammates involved. There's a lot of standing around. And when there's more standing around, you're not getting back on defense. You're not doing the other things that you need to do, where if you miss a 3-pointer, which you're still more likely to miss than make, are you able to do the other things to stop the opponent and prevent them from making a run? They are still finding that line, because I do think they still settle for threes. And if there's any one kind of weakness, like I'm a big believer in your greatest strength is your greatest weakness. Their greatest strength is 3-point shooting volume. It can become a big weakness if that's all you're relying on. We saw at the end of the Wizards game, they won that game going away by going inside and back to the basket, Tatum back to the basket fadeaways, Jaylen back to the basket fadeaway, back to the basket spin move, step through, get to the rim. You have to be able to win those games that way too, because they can be so potent from three. I think sometimes they lose sight of that. And so as this season progresses, and it's only been 16 games, as the season progresses, they just need to find that balance a little bit better. It doesn't have to be 50-50 threes and twos, but they just have to figure out that balance a little bit better.
Right.
I think that's really well said. We talked about some of the Moneyball stuff, not to cross sports. It's kind of like when the A's realized 100%. It's about getting on base, not necessarily about your batting average. And the Celtics aren't the first to do this, right? I feel like you really saw Steve Kerr's Warriors be kind of that 3 points or more than 2 kind of philosophy. Yeah. But you're right. Like, at what point does it stop becoming basketball? And you talk about the misses, right? You miss, and now no one's back on D. And you're right. It's not basketball anymore. So that's a really good perspective.
It's the old ball out of the hoop, taking the ball out of the hoop conversation.
Yeah.
And then it goes to pace, and then it goes to half court and all that stuff.
Joe is big on, this isn't football, right? There's no offense and defense. It all flows. You get a stop, now you can run. You get them cross-match, you can get your opportunities, you can get your 2-on-1s, you can score, you can get those layups, or you can get those kickouts to the corner for 3. You make those, now you can go back and set your defense. If you're active, you can make sure, if you're crashing the boards, you can get extra opportunities, and even if you don't get those opportunities, if you're crashing the right way, you can still get back on defense. And it's just one, I call it the big basketball Mobius strip. It's just one constant flow of everything. It's not just offense and defense, even though once the ball's over half court, you are on defense. Everything is connected. And so on a bad defensive day, you can look at how their offense is flowing.
Right.
And if there's a good chance they're stagnant on offense when they're not playing well on defense.
Right. And that's why it's important to do more than just look at the box. Like, you can't. It's not just the point. Like, that's why or go, oh, but they're winning by 40 or they're losing by 40. Why do you need to watch the rest of it? Well, because I got to see the flow.
Yeah,
that's what I got to do.
The Mobius strip.
The Mobius strip.
I like that.
I know you probably got a head in, but I do want to ask just like stories that you had from the championship run, like whether it was the parade or that final night, winning it here. We were outside the Garden. We had a show. Like, do you have any stories, like things or memories, like that you could kind of share?
So it was more after the fact. My favorite thing is it's like 3, 4 in the morning. So first of all, let me backtrack a little bit. It's about 2 in the morning or so, and I love sitting in the empty arena to write. I love like that is my office type of thing.
Awesome. Wow.
Confetti all over the floor. It's empty, minus like there's media out there doing their thing. But I'm in the media section, not back in the media room writing. And I see Joe Mazzulla and his wife hand in hand walking around the court, just taking it all in, having like that moment. I asked Joe about it after. He goes, first of all, I thought we were alone. And I was like, sorry to blow up your spot there.
Yeah, right.
But it was a really nice moment, like that human moment of like this gratitude that he has. I mean, he's from Rhode Island, just like me. Grew up watching the Celtics, so he has a very special appreciation for what they just did. So that moment was really cool. And then a couple hours later, I mean, I didn't get out of here till 6, 7 in the morning that night. But like,
podcast.
Thanks, bro.
Thanks,
Jeff.
Is that to you? We'll take it.
It's like 4 in the morning, and Jaylen Brown comes in, drunk, right? He just comes back in, and he just looks. He walks in the other, like the tunnel, and he's looking around. And he goes, "It's a beautiful sight. This is a beautiful sight." And he just said that like over and over again, and he was a little off balance.
Right.
You know what I mean? He had gone to the celebration afterwards. He came back. He has his MVP trophy. You know, he's with some of his friends, and they've got the trophy with them. And like people are taking pictures with the trophy, and like I don't even know if he might not have even had shoes on at that point. But he's just sitting there looking around like, this is a beautiful sight. And it was that moment. I love when guys let their guards down, and we kind of forget. We treat all these guys like superheroes. And they do like superhuman things, but it's hard to remember sometimes that they are actually human beings. They have this one incredible superhuman skill, but when they're done, they go home. Wow. That's a gust.
Breezy.
Wow. They go home and do the same things we do. They just have better houses and they drive better cars there.
Right.
But to have those moments of like humanity where you could just talk to just Jaylen from Atlanta and not number 7, the MVP, like that moment is like super, super cool because like they're just like kids celebrating something that they always dream of doing.
Right. Out of this team, who's the hardest to kind of have that guard come down, and who's maybe the easiest? Who do you feel like will always give you something? Is pretty easy to talk to, and who do you really have to work for?
Jaylen is tough because he's super focused. Right, he's super focused. He's not going to give you much. Al Horford is very on message. Very on message. A lot of these guys are extraordinarily well coached when it comes to media. So you're not going to get anything. Peyton Pritchard never says anything. It's very like straightforward. But Kristaps Porzingis is always just like seems genuine. Kristaps is just he's the happiest dude I've ever seen in my life. I said this to him last year when he was walking around in the back just smiling. I'm like, you're the happiest basketball player I've ever seen. He's like, yeah, man, look at this. The other day, I think it was the Toronto game, I'm standing on the sideline. Sometimes I'll like stand on the court and just watch the warm-ups. I kind of want to see how it's going. And he just looks over at me and just gives me a wink. And he's like smiling and he's like, yep, let's go. And he's shooting. I'm like, this guy is just happy. He walks out to the court. He pumps his fists to the crowd. He's like winking and finger guns to everybody. So he's the easiest guy to talk to for sure. And everybody's easy to talk to. No one is standoffish at all. It's just Jaylen is super focused. He's very intense about what he's doing, and he's very on message. Like, I only care about this, which is good. But it does make for, again, tough to get somebody to say something like, oh, okay, this is something I can work with.
Right.
But
you think he's most similar to Mazzulla in that way, out of the players?
In a lot of ways, he is. I think Drew Holiday is as well.
Yeah.
Just intense guys, focused guys. But truly love basketball, but are also like, I think everybody's a little weary of the media because they don't know, like, even though I'm not going to be a hot take guy, it doesn't matter because the thing that they tell me gets put into a story, and it's up to me out of, like, we've been talking for a long time. In a story, if you were writing a story about this, you'd take 5 sentences of what I've said, and I've been yapping for a long time. They know that I'm only going to cut their quotes off at a certain point,
right.
And so they don't know the context of what's going to get out there. And then somebody takes the thing that I wrote and takes the little clip of that and takes that out of context, and that's what gets shared on Twitter.
And then you have Take of the Town commenting on that.
You get these kind of pop-up shops, and it's just a big game of telephone.
It's really what it is. So they're
right.
weary. They're weary of that.
Yeah.
They are not exactly trusting of the media in general. So it's tough, you try to earn their trust as best as you can, but, if I were in their shoes, I'd be weary of people like me too.
Well, it's a good point, though. It's not even you. It's like you write something, and then it's the secondary use of whatever your story was.
Socials, and then people want to take 5 words and put it on a graphic on Twitter or Instagram, and that's the stuff that makes the rounds. And that's what they see. They don't see what I wrote.
Right.
Or they don't hear what I said, giving it full context. They see the stuff that goes viral, and they're like, why are people focusing just on what that little bit is?
Yeah. Well, that makes your job a little tougher.
It does.
Part of it.
And
but
if they're going to reflect on what can I do different next time, the only thing they can control is what they say to you. So then they're like, now I have to be a little more guarded.
That's right.
Not that you did anything wrong, but it's
that's right.
How it gets spun by your takes of the town.
You're right. Yeah. the people on a folding
These guys on the folding table outside of the garden.
Yeah. How dare they spin those 5 words?
Yeah.
We've
Flipping
figured out that
T-shirts.
you guys are part of the problem. That's what we've come down to. This therapy session has now come to a breakthrough.
All right, John. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah,
That was
seriously.
great.